honor to get to introduce Mr. and Mrs. Bender. So please give Greg and Angela a round of applause.
You clap for that and it's you? Is that super weird? I never know what to do with that.
I'm not sure. I would be okay with clapping for myself.
I know, that's how I am too. I can clap for myself. I clap for myself
Can we clap
sometimes when
for
I
you,
wake
Greg?
up and I go, yay, you got up. No, I don't. But that's a really good idea. Sometimes I need that in the morning. My husband's just going, I'm so mortified by you right now.
I don't know.
You gave up being mortified by me a long time ago. Hi.
Hey, thanks for coming out with us tonight.
Super glad. And how you're liking the cold snap, right?
I'm confused.
A little chilly out there.
Because the news people are now saying it's going to be a hot one today, and it's like 102. I'm like,
that's way colder.
who are these people? They're confused.
I know,
I don't
right?
understand.
So true. I'm ready. I'm ready with my long sleeves. Hey, I'm going to have somebody grab the lights back in the back if you don't mind. And, I'm so excited about tonight. I'm excited about our time together. I'm excited about what God's doing in our lives. And so on that note, I would love for anyone to share what they feel like God is doing in their life this week. And some of you might be in process, and some of you might be a little ticked off. I personally have a bone to pick with God right now. Anybody with me on that? I realized, thank you, right? Okay, yes. There are these times in your life where you realize, what is this unsettled frustration that I've been feeling? And then you finally realize, I think I'm frustrated with the Lord right now. I'm super mad, and I need to have a conversation, and I need to figure this out with Him. And I'm so annoyed. I'm not sure if I'm ready to have the conversation yet because I just discovered I'm really mad at Him. And so I love that. I love that conflict and conversation and communication is good. So whether it's good or it's still in process, we'd like to hear. So anybody want to share? Oh, yay, Lindsay. I love your journey with the Lord. It's super fun. So yeah.
So one of the stories that's been really speaking to me that Graham tells is a vision he had of Satan pushing him off of a cliff.
Yes, the art of bouncing back.
And he can feel himself falling. And then right as he's going to hit, he falls onto a trampoline. And he bounces all the way back up higher than the cliff that he fell off of, higher than the enemy, above him in a place of power. And I have been exploring this with the Lord, because instead of when I get knocked down and going into shame or whatever place I take it to, he keeps going, oh, let's just bounce because of Jesus, because you're in Jesus. Let's just bounce above that and not go down with it. And so I've just had this picture of grace, a grace trampoline, and then I walk in here and there's just grace plastered everywhere. And I'm like,
right?
I'm digging grace right now. That's kind of fun.
It's so fun. I'm so glad you shared that.
So you're like a Super Bowl, right? Yeah. There we go.
Super Bowl. That's awesome. Oh, fun. Anyone else want to share what they feel like they're journeying with God in? Learning, discovering?
We have a third place person, but no second place person yet.
Oh, really? Oh, that's hilarious.
That's how it's going.
Okay. She said let someone else go. Oh, well, there we go.
I'm not sure I
Good job,
have
Mars.
words, but I did want to say that every single song that you did today, wherever Jocelyn is, was really spoke to me.
Oh.
And just really experiencing His holiness all around, even in things that sometimes maybe previously you wouldn't think were holy. Mm-hmm. And His glory, his gloriousness in every situation, even in some situations that you wouldn't think were glorious.
Yeah.
And it's just really, really fun to see that, to experience that.
That's so good.
I'm
Thanks,
so
Mark.
glad I waited for you. So I just got to go to San Diego for my birthday. It was really a great time. And last night I went to, it's called Sevilla Cafe, or Cafe Sevilla. It's in downtown San Diego, and it's a flamenco dance show with like you're in Sevilla having Sevilla food. Anyway, it was really awesome. But the best part about it, as the flamenco dancers were doing their show, I don't know if anybody here has experienced flamenco, but it's very intense, and kind of like the power that's expressed in it is a little intimidating. Like they have very severe faces as they're doing their dance. And I had remembered a long time ago when I was in Spain and I saw it, that it sort of like left me a little shook up, and so I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it this time. But as I was watching it, it's like the Lord gave me some words to describe what I was feeling as I was seeing these 3 different ladies do different expressions of flamenco dance. And the first one, the word was pain and power, especially in womanhood, in what it means to be a woman. And anyway, one thing led to another, and by the end of the show, I was so inspired and overcome. And I don't know why, but anyway, they invited 3 different people to come up on the stage to dance, and I ended up being one of them. So sure. So it was just kind of like bizarre to me that they asked me, but I was like, okay. So the lady that did my particular partnership, her story that she was demonstrating was the story of triumph. And I didn't know that was her story, but after the whole thing was done, I went and talked with them, and I said, I felt when this one was dancing, I could feel the pain and the power of womanhood and the story of a lifetime. And they said, yes, that's exactly what it was. And she says, and hers was passion and mine was triumph. And I got so excited. I was like, Lord, you let me dance the triumph. I'm not in the pain and the power. That has been my history. Now I'm in the triumph. And I just got so excited. I felt like the Lord gave me a complete upgrade. And then my whole drive home, he was just showing me thing after thing after thing, how he was inviting me not to fix my problems, but to live in the triumph. And then I walked in and the music you guys were playing, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what happened. I mean, it's exactly it. Anyway, I just got so excited that we have a new identity as, people of God. So, hallelujah.
That is so good. Yes. Woo! Yay, Anne. I love that. I don't know, it's sometimes a little challenging when we have the littles with us, when we share, but the reason why we do that, and we've tried have we not tried a lot of different things? We've tried a lot of different things. But we decided we absolutely wanted kids to be a part of a little bit of testimony and sharing, because that word testimony means literally do it again. So when we're sharing what it is that God's done in our life, I believe that God inhabits that story, and any heart that says, I want that too, God wants to do it again. And so I think that was really at the core of testimony. I don't know if any of you grew up with testimony meaning something so totally different, which was like reciting your story. But really, what it meant was the power to do it again. And so I just want my kids growing up hearing our stories of the simple everyday life that's lived with God, and their heart saying yes to that, and God saying, let's do it again. Let's do it again. So, yay. So we will, on that note, release our littles, our champions, our
They're
game
not
changers.
so littles.
They're not so little.
Don't call them littles. They're bigger than littles.
Our young men and women.
There we go.
Our young men and women who are going to go spend time with Miss Christy. In fact, Abraham asked me today, he goes, are we going to have kids ministry? And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, with Miss Christy and maybe sometimes with Miss Jocelyn. I said, we are. And he goes, yes. So that was fun.
All right. That's
so,
the cue.
Boys, that's the cue for you to go.
For Abraham Sawyer. Aiden, August, Alex,
Elliot.
Genevieve, Elliot. Who else am I missing? That's it.
Okay, fly be free, but not too free.
Not too free.
Not too free. Respectfully free. Go fly respectfully free. How's that? How's that for a new phrase? We need that hashtag respectfully free. Right? Oh man, so good. So please come in and fill in chairs. For those of you who don't have a spot, we want to have you to have a spot. We want you to have
We got a whole
space.
table up
We have a
here
whole
now
table
that
over
the children
here.
have left it.
We've got the Stoffers who are always like totally outgunned when their kids are here, super impressive, and then they are all alone when they are gone. So this week we are going to be talking about, it's just kind of, I love how God like does things in our lives. We come together and share just a little slice of it, just a few of us, and then God wants to meet us in that space and go, well, let me tell you more. Right? Like he just does this, and it doesn't even matter what's being shared up here. It's really like what he's doing in our hearts and what he's doing in our minds. If we're willing to just allow ourselves the space, you know, to go, okay, Lord, shock me. Astonish me tonight, you know, do something, you know, just like dare him. So our, as we're wrapping up our series on becoming powerful people, and most of you know that's with Danny Silk.
So are we actually wrapping it up today,
No,
or the beginning of the
it's the beginning of the
this
wrap,
is the continual.
which is never the real end, because
That's
you
what
know
I
that's
thought.
never the
I
real
was just
end,
clarifying that for
right?
anybody who thought, oh, this is the end.
So we have 1 or 2 weeks left. I'm not sure
Or
which.
more.
Still no, probably 1 or 2 or more.
There might be another little
This is
jewel
the-
in there.
This is the listening journey with God. It kind of is that way. But anyway, we've been inspired by Danny Silk, so it's a little bit of combination of what God's done in our lives and a whole lot of what God has done in Danny's. And so that's kind of like what we're doing here in this series. And then somebody left their notebook. Does anyone? Yes, excellent. Good man. You're wondering where that was, and it's kept safely for you here. So yay. So tonight we're going to be talking about conflict and communication. So last week we talked about, trust and communication. This week we're going to talk about conflict and communication. I know you're all like, yes, if I had known this, I might not have come tonight.
Conflict
no, it's
is
gonna be
my
so
favorite thing.
Good. No, your favorite thing is the F word.
No.
Feelings. Feelings. The F word. The F word in our family is feelings. Don't want to have anything I'm sorry, did I make you blush?
You probably did.
I'm sorry. I can't do anything.
I can't trust you.
You can't trust me. This is now communication and conflict happening right
Hope
now.
is here. So behave yourself.
Feelings was it? Okay, so if you put the title up on the board, that would be super great. Conflict and communication. And we're off to the races. Right? So let me ask you this. In communication, what do you feel like is your number one goal? I want you to take a moment and just go, what is my number one goal? When I'm communicating something with somebody, what am I trying to accomplish? And when somebody's trying to communicate with me. So just take a moment and listen to your heart and go, okay, and then I want to hear from you. So give it a moment.
Heather doesn't need a moment. She's
doesn't
already
need
on
a
the
moment.
game.
Yes.
I think to be understood and to understand the other person.
Well, you and Danny Silk and 20 years of research and a whole lot of money agree. How many had something else? To win? No, nobody will actually admit that, but truth. Okay, good. So that's close. Communicating your truth, yeah. Anyone else have something they wanted to? Yes, Lindsay.
I grew up not being heard, so I really fight to be heard.
So good.
So can I say unhealthy stuff that was first of all
Sure.
in my mind?
Sure. That's what the first thing that came to your mind was.
I was going to say the other, but the first thing would be peace and agreement.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
because that's what seems to be, but I've been learning that that's not really.
It's not so much.
yeah,
Not
but
so
that's-
beneficial. Not
no.
super powerful either.
No.
Right.
No.
And not super successful. Unfortunately, we've given a whole lot of decades of trying, and it's not been working for us so well.
Yep, so
Okay.
definitely being understood, yes.
That's so good. Thank you. Anyone else want to comment? So communication. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Yes, absolutely.
I was just thinking honesty and openness that brings transparency, which brings intimacy.
Yes. Super good. Are you writing these things down and running the mic around? Just checking.
Yes.
All right, so what then is your goal in communication when you're in conflict?
To end the conflict.
I don't have a spiritual answer. I just have the answer that to me was most pragmatic, which is when you're in a conflict, it's not necessarily with family. It can be like in the work environment or whatever. So I thought of it more as, giving information and achieving collaboration. So that to me was more of a work setting. So.
I would actually say it's still, for me anyway, it's still to be understood. Because then either, and this is just speaking off the top of my head, because then either if they understand me, then hopefully either they'll realize that I'm right. Or,
right?
Yeah, or they'll be able to point out where I'm wrong. And either way, I'll grow and win.
Right. Good. Anyone else got any things they want to throw in the boat here? So yeah, go ahead, Carrie. Can I write on the board since you're so busy? No.
I just want to agree to disagree agreeably. Like for it to end up being agreeable. Not that we
That's a
agree
big
about
deal.
the same thing, but like that we are still connected even afterwards. Like we
Right.
can disagree, but that we still have connection and somebody doesn't cut me off.
Yeah.
And I don't cut somebody else off just because we've had a conflict.
Good.
That we're able to live within that space of things being, we come to different agreements about what that all meant.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
How many of us have gone, there are places in my life where I wish we could agree to disagree, but it doesn't seem possible. Yeah, true story. Okay, anyone else want to jump in? Yeah.
For me in life, I've really began to do my best to really listen to the person when, let's say, I've offended them or something has happened, and to really look past their reactions sometimes because, we don't know what they're going through or what pain they're in, and just giving grace and, saying sometimes I have to let it go and deal with it another time, but, it's not always that people become conflict because that's what they are, but I've reacted not great in some really painful times.
Right. So good. How many of you, if I were to say to you after church, you know what, I really need to talk to you about something. If I were to say that, how many of you would have a positive feeling in reaction to that? Yes, right, okay, good. How many of you would have a little bit of fear or concern or trepidation? Your heart would beat a little, okay. Depending on your tone. Depending on how, if I just said that, I really need to talk to you about something. So kind of neutral. What was your response? Fear? Yeah. Okay. I know, I'm sorry. I'm working on being a better parent. But that's okay. My lack is your victory, so yay. So I'm going to have you put up on the board communication and conflict, if you don't mind. And I do feel that a good goal for communication is understanding. And I do feel like a good goal in communication and conflict still comes back to understanding. And depending on the coping mechanisms that you've developed in your life based on your childhood hurts and pains and other experiences that you've had in life, you're going to have a different type of coping mechanism in conflict. Your coping mechanism may look like fight, it may look like flight, or it may look like freezing. So I'm going to have you put those three things up. Fight, flight, or freezing. And this is a mechanism, a coping mechanism that you've learned because it worked for you at some point in your life to a certain extent. And you've continued to work this until the point it doesn't work for you anymore. And at that point, then you're forced to make some adjustments or make some changes. And you might find a fight-flight combo, or you might find a freeze-fight combo, or you might, find with different people that a different method works better with different people. Or you may decide, I'm going to become a powerful person and I'm going to pursue understanding. And understanding only comes from vulnerability. So if you're going to get, I'm going to have you put understanding here as like the main, like communication, conflict, and understanding is like our big thing. The only way you're going to get to understanding is to choose to be vulnerable. Sometimes that's a good choice and sometimes it's not a good choice. So I'm not advocating for always choosing to be vulnerable in every single conflict, because that's the choice of learning how to be powerful. And we get back to our circle. Greg likes the circles. Yay, thanks, babe. So he goes, that's when we get back to our circles as to how vulnerable we're going to choose to be with different people based on in what area of the circle, how close are they in my life, and how safe are they? Are we both powerful people? Because, again, the only way to build a healthy relationship is with, what, 2 or 1 powerful person? 2. We can build a powerful ministry to a powerless person, but we can only build a powerful relationship with another person who's willing to be powerful. So communication and conflict that we're going to talk about today is healthy communication amongst 2 powerful people. We'll have to talk about how to handle conflict and communication with non-powerful people, but that's not today. I thought I was going to, and then I went, there's no way we're going to get to all that. That's like a whole big, and that will probably be next week. So, most conflict we interpret as a sign of failure. But if we chose to look at it a little differently, we could all enter into conflict a whole lot healthier and a whole lot more motivated. And instead of seeing conflict as a failure, it's a possibility that we could see conflict as an opportunity. Most conflict comes because we have grown to a point that we want something more. We are strong enough to want something more. Somebody else is wanting something more of us. This relationship can literally fall off a cliff, that was Lindsay, fall off a cliff and bounce back higher than it was ever in the first place if we choose to stop getting stuck in the shame and the blame of what got us to this place. But we often struggle with that, right? We struggle with the moment somebody shares, I'm disappointed with ... We get so stuck in our own issue that we step out of understanding. We're not even seeking to understand that person anymore. We now become totally focused on ourselves. And that's not a powerful stance. Powerful people choose to seek understanding instead of self-protection. And go, your emotional response to my behavior is still not mine to own. I can become aware of it. I can make choices about it, but I don't own your emotional reaction to my actions. Now I am free to understand you and make powerful choices. Wow, right? I was not raised like that. I never knew how to do that. I'll just be honest. I always thought everybody's reaction was my fault and that I needed to then fix it. So every communication became about me, what? Fixing. And never seeking understanding, therefore bypassing vulnerability, intimacy, and connection, and always having our relationship become functional. And how many of us have done that in our relationship with God? Relationship with others.
But with others.
With others, yeah. And then with God. We find ourselves in this functional relationship with God, lacking conversation, lacking understanding. And then we go, really, was I meant to go through my entire life having no understanding of what God and I are doing in this life together? I have bypassed all intimacy and all vulnerability. I stop asking the Lord to even share His heart with me and what He's doing in my life. Because why? It never occurred to me in the first place to ask. When I asked, I didn't hear. When I heard, I wasn't happy with what I heard. I'm still hurt about other issues. I don't believe I deserve to hear. Those are all different reasons that we react in those ways with God. and then also with other people. So healthy communication really kind of tries to step into present future while acknowledging the past. Let's acknowledge, okay, there's been a lot of hurts, a lot of pains, but if we're going to move forward, we have to move forward present future. There has to be a level of, okay, the past is what the past is. We now have to walk out a better future in order to unwrap the past, right? The best antidote for the past, I know what people have said, is forgiveness. The best antidote for the past is a new future. We can forgive people all day long, and we can forgive the Lord, and we can forgive ourselves, but how empowering is it when we step into new choices, new behaviors, and new empowerment? So it's just something to consider. So here are some hallmarks of a healthy relationship and healthy communication in conflict. And these are from Danny, and I super appreciate them. So first one is, let's write these down. And let me just take a moment while you're getting space, is that I remember we had a conflict with somebody here at church about their role here at church, and like we're super tiny, and so they came to me and they said, I don't like how this is going. And they were super frustrated, and they had been frustrated about it for like 6 months. And I didn't realize they'd been frustrated with it for 6 months. So what did I feel immediately? Love and compassion to understand them, or felt guilty? I felt guilty. What good is that going to do that person or myself? None whatsoever. So after about 15 minutes of feeling guilty, I said, let me call you back for just a moment. And I got centered with the Lord, and I'm like, okay, what does this mean? What shall I do? And he said, they're unhappy with how things are going in their particular role. And I said, and I feel bad about that. And he's like, why feel bad about it? And I'm like, I don't know, I somehow feel responsible. And he goes, this is how this is going to go from now on. You are in a beginning church. Everything is going to be fine until it's not fine. And once people realize it's not fine, then they're going to step up and make it different. That's the name of the game here. Nobody's going to all of a sudden have a brilliant idea. Half of the things that happen are going to happen because people recognize the lack of something and they want it to be different. And isn't that true in our lives? Like, half of the reasons we stop doing the thing we've always been doing is because we recognize the lack and we decide we want something better or different. So we can see communication in conflict as the propelling force that moves us in a better direction. We can take that which we saw as negative and crushing and see it as the propeller on the ship that is meant to guide us in the right direction. This conflict was meant to produce a better result for relationship, for connection, and for functional relating back and forth. And so when we see conflict like that, it helps shift us out of the place of, I don't need to feel bad about this. I need to recognize, hey, we can move forward and do this differently. And let's not wait 6 months before we voice our frustration. Let's not get all mad at each other, and let's not have lack of, let's discover what we're feeling sooner, communicate faster, and make changes. So I was able to call that person back and go, wow, I am so sorry that you felt powerless. I'm so sorry that, and I was able to really understand how they were feeling and go, this to me feels like an opportunity to make a change. And they were like, that's exactly what I think needs to happen. And we were able to make a change within a few moments of understanding. So when we in our relationship realize that almost all of our conflicts are an invitation to do something different, that helps us shift into a mode of hearing God and to how He's guiding this relationship. But also this other thing happens, which is both parties get to choose to be powerful people to participate in the change. And if you don't have that in a partnership, then you've got to go on to the next step, which is how to do communication with a non-powerful person. But today we're sticking with somewhat powerful. So in a powerful and good dynamic where two people are choosing to take responsibility for their choices and their actions, my stance is my thoughts and feelings are important, and so are yours. So that's it. I'm important, so are you. Nobody is more or less important in the relationship. This is especially important for parent and children, because we sometimes think that kids below the age of 18 are somehow lesser beings than adults. Even though just because they have less experience, it somehow makes their opinion less significant. If we can approach every single person and going, Lord, show me the preciousness of who this person is and how important their voice is, we can step into a much more healthy dynamic. It doesn't mean that we don't still make choices as parents for kids, but it means that we enter into the conversation from a place of value and honor, which always creates understanding. And I think that's so much the problem between parents and kids, is a lack of honor and understanding that kind of gets in the way. Okay, so my thoughts and feelings are important, so are yours. Yay! Anybody want to comment here? Has this been a huge sticking point? I think somebody said they didn't feel heard. Does that kind of somewhere kind of fall in this place? I'm important. You're important. Not feeling important in a conflict crushes the outcome, right? Any other thoughts or comments on this? Yeah.
I had a thought about this because I realized that some of the dynamics with my own children, some of the dynamics with my own kids was that my good intentions would be met with a lot of opposition, and it was really easy to, just make a diagnosis and say, oh, you just have oppositional defiant disorder.
Says the nurse.
Yeah. So it was interesting today as I was doing my drive across the states, I realized that my intention was out of my need to control, which of course is going to lead to opposition. And I was like, OMG.
How many of us have kind of realized over the years or over the decades that a lot of our communication we thought was about understanding, but it was really about trying to get that person to understand us, right? Or to get to the preconceived outcome that we wanted, and then we couldn't figure out why the person was fleeing or freezing or fighting with us. Yikes, right? Okay. Next one. It's so funny. I knew that I was missing it because this is like super important to me. I don't participate in disrespectful conversations. We had to learn this in our marriage. It took us a really long time to discover that when either one of us had an elevated voice, there was going to be no good outcome soon. I grew up around yelling. I think Greg grew up somewhat around yelling, and this is, almost all of us grow up around a little bit of yelling, and I don't know. We thought we were voicing our thoughts and feelings. But I've come to realize that when we get into a tone of voice that is disrespectful, it's going to get lots worse before it ever gets better. So I've discovered I don't participate, and this is actually Danny Silks, I don't participate in disrespectful conversations, and that includes even with my kids. I'm learning how to never communicate in a disrespectful conversation, to step out of it and come back, where both people can be respectful to each other. Any thoughts? Big deal. Both of us must, in this conversation, communicate our true feelings and our desires and our needs in order to establish intimacy and trust. So not just one person can communicate their wants and needs and their feelings, and then you guys come to a conclusion and an outcome. In order to maintain intimacy, both people have to actually get in touch with their feelings, get in touch with their desires. I know, right? Isn't that the problem? I thought we could all just live off of my thoughts and my feelings and my desires. For people who were struggling, to identify their thoughts and feelings, it never really occurred to me that we were kind of living vicariously off of mine. Well, I'll just adopt yours. That sounds like a good plan, and then we'll move forward. Here's the problem with that. It never creates intimacy and trust. So if there's only one communicator in the conflict of thoughts, desires, and feelings, you haven't gotten to understanding and you haven't gotten to intimacy. What you have gotten to is compliance. Which may be, in some situations, good enough. Any thoughts? No? Okay. This is a really good one. Super loving this one. Each of us, this is again healthy communication. You might be going, is there anyone in my life who's healthy enough to communicate like this? We all get to learn together. Each of us know that it is our personal job to tell the other person what's going on inside of us. That means it's our job to find out what's going on inside of us. No longer can we say, I don't know, and have that be an adequate answer. It is my job as a powerful person to find out what's going on inside of me and then communicate my feelings, my wants, and my needs. It is not your job to read my mind. It is not your job to identify for me. In good communication, both people agree that they will find out what's going on inside of them so that they can communicate that to the other person. Those of us who've grown up in codependence have figured out how to try to figure out what everyone else wants and feels and desires so that we can play both parts in the relationship. And that doesn't work out super well, does it? Whew. Okay, anyone want to throw out a thought or an idea? Comment? It's getting a little quiet up in here. Can I share a little illustration where I did this? This is the one I asked you about. You said yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. You're like, which one are you asking?
You're asking me about another one?
No, I'm not asking about another one. Okay. So Greg and I